Here we are again, folks, and this surf report could be fairly difficult for a Gemini strong person. This is a full moon day, recording this on the 7th of December, Wednesday, for the week of December 8th through the 14th. So we do our surf reports from Thursday to Wednesday, and it just so happens on the day that I'm recording this is a Gemini full moon. So this should be interesting. We're going to feel the hesitant forward movement, and it may or may not be pleasant. Let's get started. We're ready to go surfing. Here is our summary slide for the energies. If you've never been here before, what we do is we triangulate for the influence, and then at the end we triangulate for the solution. In other words, how to behave best to maximize the energy afforded to us. Right? That's the whole concept. But first, I want to let you know what to look for in terms of energies and influence. And that's what we're focused on right now. We're going to talk about the astrology. There's that T-square on Neptune that we've been talking about for a while. That one ages out as Venus goes into Capricorn. It squares Jupiter. We have an opportunity with the ego and Saturn. That's an really interesting one. We just have all sorts of stuff. We have this T-square on Neptune kind of ages out, and then the T-square on Uranus develops for a couple of days during that week. And the I-Ching says it's gentle penetration, and this one is it's a slight move forward. It's an energy it's small steps forward. The engine's just starting, and I believe this is because we're emerging from that Neptune T-square. We're also emerging this week from the full moon in Gemini. Full moons typically make behaviors, influences a little bit more unpredictable. This one being a very mental space, a Gemini full moon. Now, I'm not talking about a full moon during this surf week, the 8th through the 14th. I'm talking about what's happening presently, and have a strong Gemini dominance in my birth chart, already feeling very kind of like overstimulated mentally, almost a headachy, but not a headache. Really strange. But DreamBot. Now, this one's interesting. Looks more like we're prepared for a fight. In fact, it could be telling us to prepare for some sort of conflict. And that is all about this Uranus square Saturn. We've been talking about this for several weeks. Uranus being the freedom, rebellious planet, and Saturn being, no, just limitations and here, handle this bad thing and challenges, but also keeping things the same. So it's change versus keep it same. And there's a T-square on Uranus, the rebellious one. So I think the DreamBot, the collective unconscious, is more inundated with this. And I have to believe that there's some extra influences when you talk about Uranus and Saturn. Yes, it is a square alignment, but then there's also this contra-parallel situation happening in the vertical, where it makes it extra conflicted, and that happens, and that influences us all week, December 8th through the 14th. So it's extra conflicted, Uranus versus Saturn. And with that, the I-Ching, I think this gentle penetration really covers, I think, a large swath of the astrology. It's not a debilitating energy, especially at the beginning of the week. We got this T-square on Neptune thing, makes everything really confusing. Your ego, your relationships, your mind is sort of conflicted with illusion and fantasy. And then Mars is also there. So it's like, I don't know what's true. I don't know what I should do. Everything's confusing, but we're emerging from that. And in its wake, we have Mercury and Venus going into Capricorn. So it is this practical moving forward. The sun's still in Sagittarius, conflicted with Neptune. So ego is dealing with the dreams and fantasy, but there's a part of us, mind, relationship, the way we look, arts, crafts, that wants to move forward because it's in Capricorn. All right, so hesitant move forward. Let's see what we've got here. Let's get started now. And I'd have to say this week, I want to have a special shout out to all of the comments this week. I don't know, just like a record of amazing comments that I would put every single one down as the best comment because they're all fantastic this week. But the winner is Chacha. I don't know how to pronounce that, but CH. Something is going on. I am Gemini, and something wakes me up every night around 3 p.m. Central. Never witnessed this before. I'm almost wondering if that's 3 a.m. because if so, that's me too. And I have a strong Gemini dominance in my chart. And but this has been my whole life, getting up around 2 to 3 a.m. and taking a leak and then going back to sleep. So I'm familiar with it. I'm wondering if your energy is just hypersensitive to this Gemini full moon that's coming up. If it's not the standard, and this is unusual, I would call it, because if you got a tuning fork to Gemini, you could be feeling that a week out, which sort of makes sense in this case. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Here is the DreamBot. DreamBot comes to us from the National Dream Center, and it's a little bot that goes out on the web, and it looks at all the dreams, and then it consolidates words, and it looks at how many instances of this word competition, for example, is coming in. Well, it calculates a surge score, and at the very top, competition, the word competition, is at the very top of the collective unconscious. To be more exact, it's the most common word in the DreamBot this week. But what we've inferred is we're calling that collection of dreams the current state of the collective unconscious. So based on that, but that's a heavy, I mean, we had a lot of surging words, and 213 is a very, very high surge scale number. It's one thing to be above 100. The word winter is 154. The word comp, which really kind of matches the competition thing. I don't know why I didn't put an arrow there. But then the next word is prepare. So competition, winter, comp, prepare. How many people have been saying prepare, price of oil and the unavailability of natural gas and blah, 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 and energy, and man, make sure you have a way to heat your house. I mean, how many people have been talking about that? So now we got the linguistics in here. This all could be day residue from all those warnings. It could be, or it could be predictive. And in predictive nature of our DreamBot typically looks at around 2 to 6 weeks to manifest. So take it or leave it. It's always good to be prepared. So it's not like we're inducing fear or anything, but to be prepared gives you lower anxiety. So anyway, this is a very high linguistic score, surge score. And so looking at the support here, the red arrows, there's quite a bit of competition and conflict, kind of a meme going on. Lesser meme going on with directions. That's interesting. So stop, start, up, back, and come, like a dog command. It's all directions. And then we have in the green is scale of reality. So that one's just simple universe, planet, and land. Almost thinking in terms of layers of reality, if you will. I don't know. It's not a big meme, but I thought those were really interesting because they're unusual. But competition, winter, comp, prepare. Boy, oh boy. Could get interesting very quickly. Where do I go next? Let's go to the astrology. Remember this is in between these two vertical lines, bold lines. This is our week, and this is just a different format for the astrology. One little error that I found in the software this week is this is the Saturn contraparallel Uranus. That's what I was talking about before. This black line indicates that it stops in last week, but it doesn't. It goes, that should be a black line that goes all the way through this week. I don't know how long it lasts, but that is kind of a troubling error. Another contraparallel is Mercury and Mars. So Mercury going into Capricorn, already there. Venus coming into Capricorn as well this week. But Mercury contraparallel Mars, which means that mind and what you're doing is sort of conflicted. This is the hesitancy part of the hesitant move forward. It's the release of the T-square. So now I can kind of get it. And the part that goes away is the Mars square Neptune. So your ability to do stuff now is free to move forward. Mars in retrograde. So repeating old patterns maybe. But nonetheless, it is moving forward. But conflicted with what logic says. That's going to make things a little difficult. That's the hesitancy. We're just getting over, the hangover from the full moon on this Thursday. And then as we go along, we're going to lose the T-square. And things are going to get a little bit more focused on that Saturn and Uranus square / contraparallel. I.e., a lot more protests, disdain for, you're going to see a lot of rebelliousness, a lot more. You're going to see a lot more hammer down from the people who want to just keep everything the same, the status quo. So, which is just going to invigorate the Uranus side, the rebellious side. It's going to get interesting. Thursday the 8th, double T-square on Neptune and Jupiter. You can see the T-square with these red lines, big conflicted, pressured energies between Sun, Mercury, and Venus, squared down to both Neptune and Jupiter. And the reason why for the double square is the moon. This is on Thursday the 8th, so it's just finished its full moon. Still within that 24 hours, because remember the full moon happened at night at around, around 10:30ish, 10 tonight. If you're watching this on Wednesday the 7th, then it's going to be in the evening. So this chart being for Thursday at midday is still in the throes of disorder-ish, unpredictable influences from full moon and Gemini, but very unpredictable in terms of thinking, because Gemini being so mental and logical. Logic doesn't really apply during a full moon. And things, the emphasis in the mental realm is very high, because Mercury has just left the detriment in Sagittarius and now is at full strength in Capricorn. But things are much more practical, wants to move forward, wants to reach goals, envision something to accomplish. And so that is the point there, is full up. And so mind is full up. And then the emotions, the full moon is in Gemini. So making rational and logic actually a decent choice against the fantasy and illogic nature of Neptune, just the full up escapism and fantasy and trickery. But it's not a whole lot of doing, as you notice here, not a lot of forward movement available for you. We're just starting to see the signs that, hey, the engine might get started here pretty soon, and we're going to just tap on the accelerator just a little bit and start moving forward from this T-square as we go along. The other thing to note is just the extreme conflict. This is the visual version of Saturn square Uranus. Uranus getting closer to the North Node, so much more future-oriented. Uranus already future-oriented. And we got the contraparallel associated with the square. So square is conflicted and pressured. You've got protest. You got the rebellious Uranus, freedom lovers against the leaders, government, police force, limitators, challengers. Saturn just keeping everybody in check. Friday, the 9th. Venus. This is the chart that is in at 9:53 p.m. on the 9th. And that's why, that's because Venus is going into Capricorn as well. So that's down here. Venus has just left Sagittarius, leaving Sun, its only planet in Sag. And Venus in Capricorn is much more responsible, much more ambitious. Relationships become much more loyal, and the big shift for relationships is dependence in general, loyalty and that kind of thing. When Sagittarius, much less of that. So that's the big shift for Venus. But the point now is you've got the Venus aspect of us and the mental Mercury aspect of us, both with that Capricorn forward movement, upward movement energy. Still conflicted though, but these two, Venus and Mercury, are going to age out first and emerge from the T-square on Neptune. Now, ego is the big news here, because this is going to get a lot stronger. Sun at 18 degrees Sag and Neptune at 22. So Sun is still approaching a perfect square, an exact square on Neptune. And so ego has a terrible time deciding what to do, and easily feels like escaping. The pressure produced by this conflict here makes ego really focus on escapism. So watch out for that. In general, you don't want to escape things. You want to accept reality as it is, and then if you want to make a change, then make the change, but don't escape it. It'll only create more problems. And the double T-square has ended because the moon has progressed into Cancer. We're going to cut back a lot on rationality and logic because moon is no longer in Gemini and into Cancer in home, so it feels good to be at home. That's a little bit more isolated, which wait till you see the solution. We're getting out of that tribal mindset over time and getting into more individuality. Not that moon and Cancer are individual. I'm just talking about the location now. Just want to be at home, at least on this day and maybe Saturday as well. Is the influence of the moon. I don't talk a lot about the moon just because it changes so quickly, and it rarely becomes the dominant force for the entire week because it changes so frequently, but I do include it periodically when I feel necessary. Saturday the 10th, this is midday. There's higher probability of escapism because the sun is going to become the only square here to Neptune. And on Sunday, we have caution with extra ambition. So because Venus and Mercury are in Capricorn, it wants to move forward, but ego doesn't really know. And it's pressure to, it's this want to achieve, want to have ambition, but ego says, I don't know. It wants to go. Sagittarius is a fire and a go energy, but it's unattached and it's impulsive, so it can impulsively escape. I would really highly, this entire week, watch for escapism And in addition to this hesitancy, on Monday the 12th, we have the climax of opportunity. I haven't talked about this yet this week, but this is this entire week. You have the Sun sextile Saturn, and this is when it goes exact on the 12th, 12 at 12 p.m. So just a little bit after noon. This is the climax of opportunity. What's the opportunity here? Well, Saturn is the planet of limitation and challenge. And so ego, if we limit ego, we unlock the doors of this opportunity. So limit ego. And that's for a couple things. First, if you limit ego, you're limiting this impulsive nature of Sagittarius that gets you in trouble. You're limiting this desire and pressure to escape. And so you limit all that. And just by not sacrifice, I'm not a big believer in, excuse me, I have an air bubble in my throat. I'm not a big fan of just total sacrificing ego. Okay. And I'm more of a fan of, in this case, especially this week, is to watch ego a lot and limit his or hers little inner child desires. Limit that. You can allow that child to want, and we're talking about the inner child, the one that kind of cries and whines. This is the ego. This can be the ego. And all these kind of superficial wants and maybe quote unquote needs. And if you can allow that to be there, but we don't have to act on it. And that, I think, will unlock this sextile. Okay, so the T-square, now you can see the T-square on Neptune is gone. But now the Saturn, Uranus, Moon now is going to be there for a couple days. So big energy focus on like a radar focus on rebelliousness. It's hard to get out of. It's hard. It's going to be hard in these 2 days, December 12th and 13th, to get out of this rebellious mode. And again, keep your ego in check. Limit that. Doesn't mean you can't do anything. Doesn't mean the ego can't be used. Use your ego for value-based behaviors, and then you unlock this sextile. For Mercury, for mental aptitude, it's easy to change your mind because we have Mercury trine Uranus. And it's just starting. Mercury will continue to progress through here and make this even stronger, but easy to change your mind. And you also get insights. You might get awesome inspirations and insights from Uranus into this energy in Capricorn, because remember, Mercury in Capricorn is so more of a visionary, not particularly invention, but it's kind of the practical matters, designing something in the real world and going out and getting it. Well, these are smaller projects because Uranus can really change that up quickly. I wouldn't put too many big, long, durable projects out on the table right now. I'd make them small because you know that Uranus is going to really change that up and you'll change your mind. So be watching out for that. Okay, so now Sun has progressed, getting really close to a perfect square with Neptune, but enters a square with Jupiter as well. So now it's one thing to have Neptune as an escapism, but Jupiter makes it even more challenging when it's Neptune and Jupiter. So it's a square to both. You have Sun square Neptune and Sun square Jupiter. Neptune and Jupiter are in a very loose conjunction, about 7 degrees. So technically within the orb of 8. And so together, Neptune and Jupiter represent a big, an urge for addiction, to keep maybe exacerbating or overindulging into biting off onto the fantasy from Neptune, and maybe over romanticizing about what kind of effect that will get you. And then, the nature of addiction is you start getting less and less reward from that same activity, but you're caught up here thinking that it's going to give you that big burst of dopamine, and now you're just getting caught in that cycle. So this is the big alignment here. You need to really concentrate on why you do what you do, and whether or not your activities are really correlated with your highest values, what you really want out of life. Values are a deeper look at your life in general, but deeper than just the ego, your soul's path. Your values are matched with intuition and an internal guidance system, higher power, inner authority, if we're talking about human design, instead of just what your inner child wants at the moment. It's very, very important that once we get into Tuesday the 13th, that you do be aware of this easy to bite off, this promise of Jupiter to say, hey, it's going to be awesome, and then the sun in Sagittarius wants to go get it really fast without thinking. Just give ego a big pause this week. Think before you act. Okay. Easier said than done. Wednesday, the 14th, this is the climax of Sun and Neptune in a square. And so thank goodness that this alignment is nearing its end. But ego in particular is concerned with not escaping and not entering in addictive cycles. All right, shut this off and let's get into the I-Ching. We tossed the coins 6 times. We got 3 change lines, and that ends up being hexagram 57. Gentle penetration. A gentle influence is at work, but just as the wind can be ceaseless in its efforts, small forces can add up to produce lasting results. Gentle penetration bodes well for new relationships or enterprises. But like we talked about before, I would, with the Mercury, this is for the new enterprises, the Mercury trine Uranus, I wouldn't put big projects together this week and introduce those, but small ones, they're totally fine. It's that hesitant move forward feeling that's going to start really light at the beginning of the week, maybe non-existent at the beginning of the week, the 8th, but it's going to get a lot stronger as we go. Never be full on yang, go, 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 but definitely that, how the newer cars, when they're at the stoplight, you press on, you let off the gas, let off the brake, and put your foot on the accelerator. You actually hear the car starting again. It's starting those other cylinders that shut down. That's kind of the early part of the week where you're not going anywhere. Wait. You got the foot on the accelerator, but the car is restarting again and it's about to move forward. That's the energy that it starts out with. And then it might creep forward then by the end of the week. All right, line 3 says, an overactive mind may begin to use fresh doubts as a shield against taking necessary action. When analysis is overdone, the will becomes paralyzed and weakness of purpose sets in. Misfortune can result from too much thinking. Line 4 says, combine responsibility, experience, and energy with modesty for enduring effects and almost guaranteed success. That, in my opinion, is Mercury and Venus in Capricorn. Line 6 says, both success and difficulty are indicated, for a certain loss of strength will also come about. But where there's difficulty this week, there's also successes on the other side of the coin. So it's a matter of perspective. Remember that. Now you put those change lines in, you get hexagram 47, subtracted 10, and we get oppression. Ooh, oppression, but it's not an energy. This is now the solution. So this is the way we should behave. And you can see that I was doing this particular part of the CIRF report in the car I was riding. And it's really hard to make straight lines here, but with Venus in Capricorn, is it important to be strong on the inside while remaining quietly cheerful on the outside? Avoid too much talking, except to your closest friends. Remember, this is oppression. Not that Venus in Capricorn is oppression, but the solution here is remarkably close to Venus in Capricorn. Venus is more ambitious, wants to move forward and create, not create, but achieve, put together, assemble. But it says avoid too much talking. Yeah, because the Venus and Mercury aspects are busy doing more practical things. But you can talk to your closest friends, it says. Your words have little effect on most others, since your influence will be at a low ebb. Yeah, Venus in Capricorn is less about showy and big social engagements. It's much more practical. It's much more task-oriented. And aimlessly talking costs you vital energy. A strong silence is the most skillful posture when facing the public during adversity. It shows that your inner core is strong enough to withstand your current troubles. At the same time, communicating openly with those you trust is also essential. So it's not like you clam up and shut down to everybody. You're only talking to the big allies, your closest friends, and your family members. For in times of calamity, talking and feeling are part of the healing. That's a rhyme. And Venus going into Capricorn is the biggest energy here, as confirmed by this gentle penetration. It's the second planet to enter into Capricorn. We're about ready to enter. As soon as Sun gets into Capricorn, it's going to be Capricorn season. And Venus starts on December 9th at 9:54 p.m. And that is in Gate 10 of the Rave and Sagittarius solution, Sidereal solution. Almost Ophiuchus, but just outside of it. So Gate 10 is treading. The underlying code of behavior which ensures successful interaction despite circumstances. This is almost verbatim what we just read in the I-Ching. And it's the Hermit. Line 2 is the Hermit. That's where Venus is when she goes into Capricorn. The successful sidestepping of behavioral requirements through isolation. Mercury exalted, where mental functions enrich aloneness. Independent behavior through isolation. Okay. Independent behavior through isolation. Okay. All right. So now we go into just our brief ad. If you want astrology reading, go to interzension.com. How about that? All right, here is the slide. I almost called this week's report the fork in the road, but I didn't mean like your traditional Y in the road. I meant like this picture, the fork, literally in the road. That is kind of what I foresee this week feeling like. Like all of a sudden you come across obstacles, and do I go around? I think I need to go around it, and then, later in the week, you'll actually be able to navigate that. But initially, that T-square on Neptune will keep you from probably going around it. Think of that. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So Sun enters the Neptune T-square, pressuring self-ego identity to escape contentious situations and make it difficult to figure out right action. However, Venus exits the T-square and enters Capricorn, shifting monetary focus to small, graceful, practical steps towards personal and business objectives. With I-Ching hexagram 57, it's that gentle penetration or small practical steps forward, which is exactly that Venus going into Capricorn. All right, now the big transition. Hear ye, hear ye. This is our critical solution slide where we triangulate what's the best behavior in order to maximize the energy of hesitant moving forward. And for our triangulation, we had the I-Ching 47, oppression, remain strong inside, smiling on the outside, avoid too much contact except for closest friends. The Rave mandala, gate 10, was treading. That doesn't sound very good. So we have oppression from the I-Ching, we have treading from the mandala, and we have line 2 with the hermit, successful sidestepping of behavioral requirements through isolation. That almost sounds like escapism, but if you know that you're doing this for a purposeful reason and it matches your values, then it's warranted and it's not escapism. Sidereal Sagittarius, well, we know what that is. So how do we triangulate all this stuff together? Here we go. The Rave this week paints a picture of isolatory individuals all treading water to stay afloat in a possibly oppressive situation. Fortunately, we've been given the strength, wisdom, expansiveness, and optimism of Sidereal Sagittarius to help bolster self-confidence and internal fortitude. The I-Ching basically agrees, although the emphasis should be mostly on individual pursuits, a big change from last week's solution. So keep in mind the shift from tribal interaction like last week to this week with individual isolation gradually increases as Neptune T-square ages out. In other words, we're not just flipping a switch and you just go off on your own this week. We're gradually converting from the tribal social thing. And then once that Neptune T-square ages out, is kind of this go be on your own. You've got your mental facilities a lot better to use and logic. And keep in mind, the purpose of the solitude is to help you avoid manipulative behaviors or narcissistic demands. You're really only communicating extensively with close friends, allies, family, and otherwise. Okay, turn that off. So you're really only communicating extensively with close friends, allies, family, and otherwise just avoiding most social situations, especially later in the week. But the influence will be that anyway. In my opinion, Venus going into Capricorn will be a lot more focused on practical tasks, vice, being all social and everything. Okay, so the affirmation that I plan on using based on the oppression and treading and hermit is, I am strong and confident, and this too shall pass. And this too shall pass. Just talked to a client this morning with very big tribulations and trials in his own life. And what we talked about extensively, talked about how to accept the situation as it is, does not imply that you have to be good with that situation. So the reason why it's important to accept reality as it is because a lot of times we do escapism based on the meaning, the mental creation of what this travesty means to us. And you escape that. But if you can come back to reality, understand the situation clearly as it is, we're not escaping, where we then can formulate a better plan in order to change the reality, if that's what you want to do. but you have to accept it first. Well, you don't have to. You can stay in non-acceptance, but your whole body will suffer from that because it'll be all seized up and rigid, and your hippocampus will be alive and emotional, and you'll be escaping all that suffering instead of methodically planning and gaining energy and gaining allies in order to change that reality. But first, it starts with acceptance. So that'll be a strong piece too, an important piece this week, is accepting life if it sucks, accepting life if it's good to you, which is very subjective. But either way is acceptance as it is. And then if you want something different, now I can create some value-based behaviors methodically and start moving those forward when the energies push you forward. It may not be this week. This week might be just more planning and very small tasks and errands. But is it moving forward compared to last week? All right, everybody, I really appreciate your follows, your likes, and especially your comments. Love seeing where you all are and any feedback that you might have. So take care, and we will see you for another surf report next Wednesday. Enjoy the Gemini full moon. Take care.